Have you ever noticed how strange people's reactions can be when you say you prefer winter? They laugh. They assume you're being dramatic. Some even look at you as if you've confessed to enjoying discomfort for no reason. Because in a world that celebrates sunshine, beaches, and endless summer vacations, loving cold weather almost feels like breaking an unwritten social rule. But what if your preference has very little to do with temperature? What if winter isn't simply your favorite season, but the only time your mind finally feels at peace? Psychology suggests that the seasons don't affect everyone equally. Some people become energized by bright sunlight and constant activity. Others experience something completely different. For them, endless heat, crowded places, and nonstop social expectations slowly drain their mental energy. They don't hate happiness. They simply process the world differently. And once you understand why, your love for winter begins to make perfect sense. The first thing many people misunderstand is that enjoying winter doesn't automatically mean disliking summer. For many people, it's actually about escaping overstimulation. Think about everything summer usually brings. Louder streets, brighter light, more invitations, more noise, more expectations to go outside, more pressure to stay busy. To someone with a highly sensitive nervous system, every one of those things demands attention. None of them are harmful on their own, but together, they create a constant stream of stimulation that the brain never gets a chance to escape. Over time, that mental traffic becomes exhausting. You may not even notice it happening. You just feel strangely irritable. Your patience becomes shorter. You struggle to focus. Small problems suddenly feel much larger than they really are. Then winter arrives. The air becomes quieter. The streets slow down. The evenings become darker. And something inside your mind finally relaxes. Not because winter changes who you are, but because it removes countless small demands that were quietly overwhelming you every single day. This is something psychology has observed for years. Researchers have found that people vary greatly in their tolerance for sensory stimulation. Some brains actively seek excitement. Others perform far better when the environment becomes calmer and more predictable. Neither is better. They're simply different operating systems. If you've ever felt guilty for wanting silence instead of excitement, you may have spent years trying to force yourself into someone else's version of happiness. Winter gives you permission to stop pretending. For the first time in months, your surroundings finally match the pace your mind has wanted all along. And perhaps that's why the first cold morning of the year doesn't feel depressing to you. It feels like taking a deep breath after holding it for far too long. But there is another reason many people secretly wait for winter. It has nothing to do with the weather. It has everything to do with permission. Modern life constantly whispers the same message. Do more. Go out more. Be productive. Stay visible. Say yes, especially during summer. The longer days create the feeling that every hour must be used. Relaxing starts to feel irresponsible. Even resting can carry a strange sense of guilt. You tell yourself you'll relax tomorrow, but tomorrow becomes another busy day. Winter quietly interrupts that cycle. The shorter days lower the pressure. People naturally stay home more. Plans become fewer. The world itself begins moving at a slower rhythm. For someone who has spent years feeling guilty for slowing down, this change feels surprisingly healing. Without realizing it, winter removes the need to constantly explain why you're choosing rest. And that freedom can be incredibly powerful. Many people believe they love winter because they enjoy cold weather. In reality, they may simply love the absence of constant expectations. Psychologists often describe this as environmental fit. We function best when our surroundings support the way our minds naturally operate. When that match exists, life feels easier. Energy lasts longer. Decisions become clearer. Emotions settle down. Winter creates that feeling for many people. Another fascinating difference involves attention. Some people naturally notice broad, exciting experiences. Others become deeply absorbed by small details that most people overlook. The sound of snow falling, the silence of an empty street, the soft light coming through a window on a cloudy afternoon, the gentle rhythm of rain against the glass. These moments don't seem exciting from the outside, but for certain minds, they create an unusual sense of presence. Instead of chasing constant stimulation, the brain begins appreciating stillness. This is one reason many thoughtful people describe winter as peaceful instead of depressing. Their attention isn't searching for entertainment, it's finding meaning inside quiet moments. The slower environment, also encourages reflection. Without endless distractions competing for attention, unresolved thoughts finally have room to surface. That can feel uncomfortable at first, but it also creates space for personal growth. Many life-changing decisions aren't made during noisy celebrations. They're made during quiet evenings when nothing demands your attention except your own thoughts. Winter naturally creates more of those moments. It gently asks a question that busy seasons rarely allow. Who are you when nobody expects anything from you? The answer often becomes clearer in silence than it ever could in noise. There's one final idea that explains why winter feels like home to some people. Identity. Every season quietly encourages a different version of ourselves. Summer often rewards visibility. Being social, being active, always having plans, always being available. It isn't necessarily wrong, but it can become exhausting if it doesn't match your natural personality. Many people spend the warmer months performing a version of themselves that feels acceptable. They smile when they're already tired. They agree to gatherings they don't actually want to attend. They stay busy because everyone else seems busy. After a while, they stop asking themselves a simple question. Is this really what I want? Winter removes much of that performance. Suddenly, staying home requires no explanation. Reading a book feels normal. Watching snow fall through the window doesn't look like wasting time. A quiet evening becomes completely acceptable. Without realizing it, many people reconnect with themselves. Not the version others expect, the version that exists when no one is watching. Psychologists have long understood that authenticity is closely connected to well-being. The less energy we spend maintaining an image, the more energy we have for living. Perhaps that's why winter often feels emotionally lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because pretending becomes less necessary. Of course, this doesn't mean people who love summer are somehow less self-aware. Some nervous systems genuinely thrive on movement, warmth, and constant interaction. Their minds recharge through stimulation. Others recharge through stillness. Neither approach is superior. They're simply different ways of experiencing the world. The problem begins when society treats one as normal and the other as something that needs fixing. If you've spent years feeling guilty because crowded beaches never excited you, because cloudy skies made you feel calm instead of sad, because silence always sounded better than another invitation, there may have been nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system may simply have been asking for an environment that allows it to function at its best. And perhaps that's the real psychology behind loving winter. It isn't about escaping life. It's about escaping unnecessary noise. It isn't about hiding from people. It's about finally hearing your own thoughts. Sometimes the clearest version of ourselves doesn't appear under the brightest sunlight. Sometimes it quietly returns beneath gray skies, cold air, and peaceful evenings. So if winter has always felt strangely comforting, maybe it isn't because you're different from everyone else. Maybe you've simply discovered the conditions where your mind finally feels free to breathe. If this perspective helped you understand yourself a little better, let me know in the comments which season feels most like home to you, and why. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior, don't forget to subscribe. Because sometimes the smallest preferences reveal the biggest truths about who we really are.